Let me start with a question that might make you uncomfortable. What if the biggest failure in your life is actually the beginning of your greatest success? Think about that for a moment. Right now, somewhere in the world, a person who feels like a complete failure today will become one of the most successful people tomorrow. But there's one difference between the people who rise and the people who disappear. It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's not even opportunity. It's how they interpret failure. You see, most people believe failure is a verdict. I learned something different. Failure is data. And if you're feeling like a failure today, I want you to listen very carefully, because the feeling you have right now might be the exact moment your life is about to change. When people look at my life, they often see the result. They see Microsoft. They see billions of dollars. They see global influence. But they rarely see the confusion, the uncertainty, and the moments when things could have gone completely wrong. Success stories are often told backwards. People think success starts with confidence, clarity, and certainty. In reality, success usually starts with doubt. When I was young, I wasn't thinking about becoming one of the wealthiest people in the world. I was thinking about problems in computers, problems in software, problems in how technology could change the world. And along the way, there were moments when things didn't work. Ideas failed, projects failed, plans collapsed. But here's the truth I discovered early in life. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of the system that creates success. And if today you feel like you failed, then you might be standing at the exact place where real success begins. Let me tell you something most people misunderstand about success. Success is not built on perfect decisions. It's built on thousands of imperfect ones. Every successful person you admire has made mistakes that would shock you. The difference is simple. They didn't stop. When I started working with computers in my early years, computers were not what they are today. They were massive machines. They filled entire rooms, and most people didn't believe personal computers would ever matter. But a few of us saw something different. We saw possibility, and possibility always begins with uncertainty. Many nights we worked until the early hours of the morning writing code that didn't work. Programs crashed, systems failed. But every failure gave us information. Every mistake taught us something. And slowly, that information turned into progress. That's when I learned a principle that shaped my entire life. Your failures are simply experiments. Think about how scientists work. A scientist doesn't run one experiment and quit. They run hundreds, sometimes thousands. Each failed experiment brings them closer to the solution. Your life works exactly the same way. But most people quit after the first experiment, or the second, or the third. They interpret failure as a signal to stop. Successful people interpret failure as a signal to learn. Let me give you a powerful truth. The world doesn't reward people who avoid failure. The world rewards people who learn faster than others. If you learn faster, you improve faster. If you improve faster, you succeed faster. And the fastest way to learn is through mistakes. That's why failure is not your enemy. Comfort is. Comfort makes you slow. Comfort keeps you safe. Comfort stops you from trying. Failure, on the other hand, forces you to grow. Failure forces you to adapt. Failure forces you to think differently. When Microsoft started growing, we faced enormous pressure. Competitors were everywhere. Technology was changing quickly. And many decisions we made were wrong. But we didn't panic. We analyzed. We studied what went wrong. We improved the system. And we moved forward. That mindset is incredibly important because the world is changing faster today than ever before. Technology evolves, industries disappear. New opportunities appear every year. If you're afraid of failure in a world like this, you will never move fast enough to succeed. But if you treat failure as feedback, you gain a superpower. Think about the most successful innovators in history. They failed constantly. Thomas Edison tested thousands of materials before creating the light bulb. SpaceX rockets exploded many times before they successfully landed. Great discoveries are almost always built on repeated failures. And yet, when people fail in their own lives, they think something is wrong with them. They think they're not smart enough, not talented enough, not lucky enough. But that belief is simply incorrect. Failure is not evidence of your weakness. Failure is evidence that you're trying something difficult. And difficult things are where real growth happens. Let me ask you something. What if the thing you're calling failure today is actually training? Training for the person you're becoming. Because every challenge develops skills, resilience, problem solving, creativity, patience. These are the exact qualities successful people depend on, but they can't be learned in comfort. They can only be learned through difficulty. And that's why I want you to change the way you see your situation. If you feel like a failure today, that means you're still in the process. Your story isn't finished. In fact, the most important chapters might still be ahead. The world doesn't need more people who never fail. The world needs people who refuse to quit. Now let's talk about something even more important than failure: discipline. Because failure alone doesn't create success, learning from failure does. And learning requires discipline. When I was young, one of the habits that shaped my life was curiosity. I loved learning, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to understand how things worked. That curiosity eventually turned into focus. And focus turned into long hours of work. Not because success was guaranteed, but because the problem was worth solving. That's another lesson many people overlook. Success is not only about talent, it's about obsession with improvement. The best programmers spend countless hours improving their code. The best athletes spend thousands of hours training their bodies. The best entrepreneurs constantly study their industries. They don't wait for motivation. They rely on discipline. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation disappears. Discipline continues. If you want to build a powerful future, you must develop the habit of working even when you don't feel like it. Because the most important work often happens on the days when motivation is missing. Let me give you a simple example. If you improve just 1% every day, something remarkable happens. After 1 year, you are not 365% better. You are 37 times better. That's the power of small daily improvements. But those improvements require consistency. Consistency requires discipline, and discipline requires a clear vision. You must decide what kind of person you want to become, not just what you want to achieve, because goals can change. But identity drives behavior. When you see yourself as someone who learns every day, you study. When you see yourself as someone who solves problems, you keep searching for solutions. And when you see yourself as someone who refuses to quit, failure loses its power over you. Let me share something that might surprise you. Even after achieving massive success, I still believed in learning constantly. I read books. I studied new technologies. I listened to experts, because the moment you believe you know everything, you stop growing. And the moment you stop growing, someone else passes you. The future belongs to learners, especially today. Artificial intelligence, biotechnology, renewable energy, space exploration. The next decades will transform the world faster than the last century did. And that means opportunity is everywhere. But opportunity only appears to people who are prepared. Prepared with knowledge, prepared with discipline, prepared with discipline, prepared with resilience. So if you feel like a failure today, I want you to imagine something. Imagine looking back at this moment 10 years from now. You might realize this was the turning point. The moment when you decided to stop doubting yourself. The moment when you decided to keep going. Because every successful life has a moment like that. A moment when someone chooses courage over comfort, persistence over surrender, growth over fear. And when you make that decision, something incredible happens. Your mindset changes. Your actions change. Your future changes. So remember this: failure is temporary. Learning is permanent. And persistence is unstoppable. The world does not belong to the smartest people. It belongs to the people who keep moving forward, even when things feel impossible. So if you feel like a failure today, don't quit. Learn, adapt, improve. Because the story of your success might be just beginning. And the world is still waiting to see what you will become. There comes a moment in every life, a quiet moment, when everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, not because opportunities magically appear, but because you make a decision that most people never make. The decision to take responsibility for your future. You see, the most dangerous trap in life is not failure. The most dangerous trap is waiting for motivation, waiting for opportunity, waiting for the perfect moment. But the truth is, the perfect moment never arrives. Success is almost always built in messy, imperfect moments. When I was young, people often imagined that I had some master plan for building one of the largest technology companies in the world. But the reality was much simpler. I was curious, I saw potential in software, and I started building. Not because I knew it would succeed, but because I believed the problem was worth solving. That's how almost every great journey begins. Not with certainty, but with belief. Belief that your effort matters. Belief that learning matters. Belief that the future can be better than the present. Now think about something for a moment. The world today is filled with more knowledge, more tools, and more opportunity than any other time in human history. Right now, someone sitting in a small room with a laptop can build a company, launch a product, write software, create art, or share ideas with millions of people. Opportunities are everywhere, but they only reveal themselves to people who take action. And action begins with a decision. The decision to stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as the architect of your life. Let me explain something that successful people understand deeply. Your future is not built in giant, dramatic moments. It is built in small daily decisions. The decision to study when others are distracted. The decision to work when others are resting. The decision to learn when others are complaining. Those small decisions compound, just like interest in a bank account. Day after day, month after month, year after year, and suddenly the person who seemed ordinary becomes extraordinary. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. This transformation requires patience. The world today moves very fast. People want instant success, instant results, instant recognition. But real success rarely happens instantly. It happens gradually, quietly, often unnoticed. While others are distracted by quick rewards, successful people are investing in long-term growth. And that's why discipline matters so much. Discipline is the ability to keep moving forward even when the rewards are invisible. Think about planting a tree. When you plant a seed, nothing appears above the ground for a long time. Days pass, weeks pass, sometimes months pass. But beneath the surface, something incredible is happening. Roots are growing, strength is forming, the foundation is being built, and when the tree finally rises above the ground, it grows quickly and powerfully. Your success works exactly the same way. The work you do today might not show results tomorrow, but it is building something beneath the surface. Skills, knowledge, experience, confidence, and one day those invisible efforts will suddenly become visible success. That's why persistence is so powerful. Persistence is what separates the people who dream from the people who achieve. Everyone dreams, but very few people continue when things become difficult. Very few people continue when progress feels slow. Very few people continue when failure happens again and again. But those who do eventually reach a moment where their efforts begin to compound. And when that moment arrives, people will call them lucky. They will say success happened suddenly. But you will know the truth. You will know that success was built in the quiet hours when no one was watching. Now, let me share something important about the future. The world is entering an era of extraordinary change. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries. Technology is solving problems that once seemed impossible. Healthcare is advancing rapidly. Energy systems are evolving. Education is becoming more accessible than ever. And in times of great change, something incredible happens. New opportunities are created. Opportunities that didn't exist 10 years ago. Opportunities that don't require perfect backgrounds or perfect circumstances. What they require is curiosity, adaptability, and a willingness to keep learning. Because the most valuable skill in the modern world is not memorizing information, it is learning how to learn. If you can learn quickly, you can adapt. If you can adapt, you can adapt. You can grow, and if you can grow, you can succeed in almost any environment. This is why I always encourage people to stay curious, read books, explore ideas, ask questions, challenge assumptions, because curiosity keeps your mind alive. And a curious mind is one of the greatest advantages you can have. But curiosity alone is not enough. It must be combined with action. Ideas are powerful, but ideas without action remain dreams. The world is full of brilliant ideas that never changed anything, because the person who had the idea never acted on it. So here is the challenge I want to leave you with. If you feel like a failure today, don't run away from that feeling. Use it. Let it push you forward. Let it remind you that you are capable of more. Because the truth is, every person who has achieved something meaningful has experienced moments of doubt, moments of failure, moments of failure. But those moments did not define them. Their response to those moments did. So ask yourself one powerful question. What kind of story do you want your life to tell? Do you want it to be the story of someone who gave up, or the story of someone who kept going, someone who kept learning, someone who kept building, someone who refused to let temporary failure define their future? Because the moment you decide to keep going, the moment you decide to keep learning, the moment you decide to believe in your potential, that is the moment your life begins to change. And one day, when you look back at the struggles you face today, you might realize something remarkable. Those struggles were not obstacles. They were the training that prepared you for the life you were meant to build. So if you feel like a failure today, remember this: your story is not over. Your future is not decided. And the next chapter of your life is still waiting to be written. The only question is, what will you do next?